I've really been wondering where the hell my governor Tina Kotek has been, and yesterday I found out, and it's not great. We could get into a whole conversation about how Tina Kotek is yet another Oregon Democrat that I had to hold my nose and vote for. We have a long history of not great governors, and several horrific mayors, but I never fucking voted for Ted Wheeler. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It's 9 o'clock at night, so I'm just going to be free with all of my opinions. But I did vote for Tina Kotek grudgingly, was not thrilled about it, and she has turned out to be kind of what I expected. But since Trump got elected, we really haven't heard very much from Tina. It's been kind of like, where is she? And I understand that there are rumors of some, potential political scandals, whatever. And I've also heard folks saying that she is trying to keep Oregon off of Trump's radar. She's laying low so as not to draw his fire. And maybe that's giving her too much credit, but if so, okay. But then I saw something published yesterday on OPB, that's Oregon Public Broadcasting, if you're not from around here. It was published on May 12th, and the title of the piece is Oregon Governor Testifies for Controversial Bill Focusing on Foster Kids. Now, a significant chunk of my content is dedicated to protecting the rights of children, defending the human rights, the dignity, the autonomy of children, pushing back against the ways that we in American society consistently dehumanize children, do not do justice by our children. And I firmly believe the way to solve so many of our problems is to start with the way we treat our kids. And by we, I mean society as a whole, how we treat and value children. That so many of our societal problems, so much of the trauma and toxicity and harm that exists in our culture can be traced back to the way we treat children. The cycles of abuse we perpetuate in our kids, the trauma we inflict on children, the way that we consistently dehumanize and discriminate against kids, the ways that we devalue children, their voices, their ideas. We design our society to be incredibly antagonistic toward kids. The way that children in the United States are deprived basic human rights that are extended to them in other countries. So many cycles of abuse and trauma start in the ways we treat kids, the ways we view children as property instead of people. There are two interchangeable terms for the systemic oppression and marginalization and dehumanization that children experience in American society. The first one is childism, and the second one is adult supremacy. I would also like to point out before I get into this article that kids sit at the intersection of childhood and basically any other marginalized class you care to think of. If there is a group that experiences systemic oppression and marginalization, there will be children within that group. And children's marginalization will be compounded because of their status as a child. Children are uniquely powerless and experience a denial of basic human rights in our society. Let's take people who are experiencing poverty, for example. Children in poverty will suffer far more than adults and have fewer resources, fewer capabilities, much less access to any way to escape poverty. I bring all of this up for a reason. Let's get to the piece. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek threw her weight behind a controversial bill that would allow the state to send children in foster care to facilities in other states and change the definitions around restraints and seclusions. I just want to point out here that some of the basic rights that children are denied in the U.S. include the right to determine where you live. Children have no say where they live, who they live with, what authority figure is in the household with them. Children are also denied the right to basic bodily autonomy in the U.S. The measure is House Bill 3835 if you want to go look it up. It is very wide-ranging and it's about 100 pages long. Proponents of the bill believe it will help the state's most vulnerable children receive mental health services and quality places to live. Could you imagine if the state could just say, actually, we're going to force you to move to another state, away from your friends and family. You have no say. We will ship you off to another state. Bye. Okay, I got to stop editorializing and just read, or I'm not going to get through all of it. But advocates and others involved with the measure, including both the House and Senate chairs of the Human Services Committee, oppose the measure. Opponents have said the policy changes will ultimately offer fewer protections and could mean more children are harmed. The goal is to improve youth access to behavioral health care, Kotek told members of the House Rules Committee. We know that too many children in our state have acute behavioral health care needs. We know that our current system needs repair and is failing too many children. The status quo is unacceptable. Well, we do know that Oregon foster care is not a great scene, and we know that the state is failing children. I'm not sure what you mean about shipping them to other states to get behavioral health care when the bill talks about restraining children. secluding them in isolation. Okay, let me keep reading. Kotek, a Democrat elected in 2022 because we had no other choice, noted protecting children, quote, transcends politics and is not a partisan issue. And indeed, lawmakers vehemently disagreed with each other despite party affiliation. One component of the measure tries to clarify what is defined as wrongful use of a restraint and seclusion for approximately 5,000 children placed in the state's care. This is a bunch of political speak. I want to ensure our regulatory environment both protects children by preventing abuse when in care and provides clear guidance for individuals providing the care so they can do their jobs. And let me be clear, Kotek said, I do not support inappropriate restraint or abuse. What I do support is a system with strong crisis intervention, training, clear and practical guidelines, and accountability. What is appropriate restraint of children? The fact that you even have to clarify, I'm for the things in this bill, but I'm not for abuse, does that not make you concerned that the things in the bill sound like abuse? And understand, we do have a problem in Oregon of too many youth who are stuck in emergency rooms because there is not appropriate placement for them in crisis centers. And the argument that proponents of this bill are making is that, well, the reason there aren't beds in crisis centers is because we can't get enough people to want to work in them. And according to Ajit Jetmalani, a doctor at OHSU, that's because there are currently so many regulations that staff are worried they will be penalized for child abuse for trying to escalate volatile situations. Again, if you're worried that the thing you're doing in your job would be construed as child abuse, then loosening the regulations so you can still do that thing without being accused of child abuse does not seem like a way to remedy the situation. It doesn't seem like we're doing right by our most vulnerable children in foster care. We're not doing right by them if that's what we're talking about. Tim Stenson, an attorney for Disability Rights Oregon, said he spent hours analyzing the policy changes made in this measure. Most supporters of this bill are people of good faith who have been told by others what the bill does. They have been told that this bill makes children safer. Stenson said that the bottom line comes down to whose analysis people trust, right? Because the bill is over 100 pages or about 100 pages long. So most folks have not actually read what's in it. Whether you trust the advocates and the children who are here speaking for themselves, or whether you trust the bureaucrats, he said, DHS has left a long trail of broken lives as a result of poor decisions and cover-ups from its administrators. That's absolutely true. DHS administrators come to the legislature and give solemn declarations of how they want to protect children. If solemn declarations made children safe, we would have had the safest children in the world. To be clear, Disability Rights Oregon opposes this measure. So the measure would allow Oregon to send children out of state to some other institution to receive care, to some other facility. To be clear, right now they can do that, but they are only allowed to send them to facilities that have gone through a licensing process and meet certain standards with the state. It seems like the bill is no longer requiring those checks and protections for kids who are sent out of state. If you're not from Oregon, you might not be aware of the fact that we already had a round of this. We already had an investigation into what was happening to Oregon's children who were sent out of state to facilities. Senator Ron Wyden led a bipartisan investigation into the practice. The report that came out from that investigation said, quote, the operating model for these facilities is to warehouse as many kids as possible while keeping costs low in order to maximize profits. Too often, abuse and neglect is the norm at these facilities, and they are set up to let this happen. Disability Rights Oregon recently settled a lawsuit with the state where they demanded that the state must lower rates of mistreatment of children placed into foster care. As part of the settlement, an expert has been appointed to oversee the state's child welfare system and to work toward improving it. Again, Disability Rights Oregon opposes this measure. DHS supports the measure, as does Governor Kotek.